Hello, Erica here, and I'm here today with the books that I would like to reread. Sooner rather than later for some of them. Later rather than sooner for others. Anyway, these are books that I feel like I could take another look at that I maybe didn't really get all the way the first time, or that I just really enjoyed and would like to read again. The first one I have is Native Son by Richard Wright. I've actually already read this twice. I had to read it in 2 different courses in college. For those of you who don't know, this is a very difficult book to read and to get through. It touches on a lot of very sensitive subject matter. It is about a character called Bigger Thomas who's growing up in Chicago in the 1930s. He is a black character and comes into the employ of a white family, and kind of disaster strikes after that and what happens to him. None of the characters in this book are particularly likable. None of them are particularly good people, but Richard Wright definitely works in a lot of themes about racial relations in the 1930s in the U.S. and specifically in Chicago, which was at the time a city charged with racial tension. And so I would really like to revisit this and think about it a little bit more, because even though I've read it twice and I've studied it twice, I still don't know that I've really even scraped the surface of what's in this book. Next, I have 1984 by George Orwell. I did have to read this in school as well, and it was a very long time ago, about 10 years ago that I read this book now. And it's just something that I'd like to revisit. I mean, I know the main storyline, but it's something that I'd like to reread again because it's so popular, so relevant, and mentioned all the time in pop culture. So yeah, I'd like to get around to sitting down with this again. Then I have a book that I really enjoyed the first time and would just really love to reread, and that's The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Again, sitting down to reread this is kind of terrifying because it's not a short book, but it was so wonderful the first time around, and I do feel like the story was a bit nuanced and that I could glean a lot more information from it if I reread it. Plus, I haven't had great luck with Michael Chabon's books since this, so I feel like maybe I need to reconnect to why I fell in love with him as an author in the first place, which was through this book. For those of you who are not aware, this is the story of 2 characters named Cavalier and Clay, and they start a comic book empire in New York in the 1940s. It's about their relationship and kind of their self-discovery, them dealing with their pasts while trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do with their lives. And I really, really love this and would really, really love to reread it. Next, I have Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I read this a little bit over a year ago for the first time. I had never seen the movie. I was vaguely familiar with the story, but not really. And I really enjoyed this the first time around. But I'd like to sit down with it and go over it with a bit of a more critical lens. I really enjoyed Scarlett's story, but I know that there's a lot more going on in these pages. And obviously it's not like I missed the racism the first time around. It's really hard to. But I would like to look a little bit more at the race relations in this book and how race is portrayed and how that kind of functions as a side effect of the era in which it was written, and of it being Southern literature. I'm very interested in Southern literature. I'm very interested in race in Southern literature. So I think that this could use another sit through. Most of these books are giant. Lastly, I have a book I just didn't get. Okay? That's The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. This was my first Dostoevsky. I have since heard that it's probably better to start with Crime and Punishment. I don't necessarily recommend starting here because I didn't get it. And a lot of that has to do with my own ignorance of the themes of this book. This book is very heavy in kind of social stigma and religious exploration and things of that nature. And it also has to do with my ignorance of Russian history. I really need to get a Russian history textbook and read it because I don't know that much about Russia. And yeah, I didn't get it. I read it all the way through, and I enjoyed bits of it. Other bits really dragged for me, again, because I just didn't necessarily understand what Dostoevsky is going to say. I think that this is a book that I would have benefited a lot from reading it in a academic setting and having been taught it because on my own, I was just kind of floundering about when I read it. So I think I would like to read Crime and Punishment and maybe The Idiot or something before I revisit this, but I would eventually like to revisit this. So yes, those are some books that I would really love to reread soon. If you have any books that you either love to reread on a regular basis or that you want to read again soon, please let me know in the comments, and I will see you all soon. Have a lovely day.